Welcome to Zombie Thanksgiving Lesson 5. In this lesson, we're going to see how we can reduce the turkey's health every time the zombie collides with a turkey. And then we're going to notice we have to move the turkey around after it's been eaten by the zombie, or there's going to be an awkward glitch in how we reduce the turkey's health. So let's get to it. So as always, let's review what we have. And we can see here, we have the two sprites moving around. And every time they collide, we have the word ouch that pops up. Now I might notice that the word ouch kind of continues to display even after it may appear as though they're not colliding. That's because there's an invisible rectangle around the zombie. And because the zombie is so big now, the collision happens a lot sooner than you would think. Again, this is going to be minimized once the zombie's back to a normal size. Let's get to code now. So we have an if statement here, which is what allows the game to make a decision on its own to decide when the two things have collided. And we saw that a sprite has a collided with function that accepts another object and returns true if the two things have collided, or returns false if they haven't collided. So by using that in conjunction with an if statement, we can draw text on the screen. And kind of going along with this, we learned that the game object now has a draw text function that accepts three required arguments: a message, and an X and a Y. And we chose to position the ouch just below the turkey by simply moving it 100 down from the Y. Now, something I want to improve on in terms of the readability, not necessarily syntax or improvement of the game, we put turkey collided with zombie, which kind of alludes to the fact that the turkey is actively trying to collide with the zombie. Not necessarily. I mean, it's more the zombie looking to collide with the turkey. Now, it's no different. When two things collide, they collide. It doesn't matter who is doing the collision. But from a point of reading the program, this makes more sense, that the zombie is actively trying to eat the turkey. All right, so we are now ready to introduce the goals of this lesson, which is let's reduce the turkey's health. Now, if you look at the sprite class, there's a lot of variables available to us. Actually, there's a lot of variables available to us from the game class as well. But again, those will pop up when we need them. Right now, we need something for a sprite. Specifically, we need a health. And if you look at through the long list of variables that are initialized in the constructor, you see at the very last one is a health. So each sprite has a health that's initialized to 100. So that means that we can tap into the turkey's health, because it is a sprite, by doing turkey.health. As you do more of these tutorials and more games, hopefully you start to pick up the notion of when you want to access something from one of the objects, you simply use the name of the variable dot whatever it is that you're looking for. So in this case, we're looking for the health, which is a variable. So turkey.health. I'm going to use a shorthand operator to decrease the health. So let's decrease it by, let's say, 5. And now, you know what? Instead of drawing the word ouch, let's display the turkey's health. And let's see what that looks like. All right, so we see two things happening here. Hopefully you see it briefly. The health just kind of keeps decreasing. The numbers are just going as long as it's colliding with it. The other thing you'll notice is that once it doesn't collide anymore, here in a second, but this is actually a good example to show that the numbers are decreasing. Come on, get out of its path. There we go. The number goes away. So we've got two things to figure out now. Let's figure out the easier one, which is how can we get the text to stay on the screen even after they're not colliding? If you think about the words I just used, even after they're not colliding, that means that the game.draw text really doesn't belong, at least for now, for the situation that we're creating, it doesn't belong inside the if statement. It belongs outside the if statement because we, regardless of whether they've collided or not, we want to be able to display the turkey's health. So let's review that part. Okay, so you can see here, the number, I'm going to get my crosshairs out of the way. The numbers stay on the screen. We still got the awkwardness of it decreasing a lot, but we're going to handle that. So the numbers don't go away. So I don't know about you, but if somebody's chomping down on me, I'm not going to stand there and take it. I'm going to try to move to a new location. And anybody who knows how I program, I tend to like to talk a certain way because it alludes to the code. So we've already played around with the move to function. So that's what we can do with the turkey. So once a zombie eats the turkey, chomps down on the turkey, let's move the turkey to a new location. So let's use move to. And if you recall, move to requires two values, an X and a Y. Now what we would like to do is have it move to a random location. Now the game library has simplified this for you in that if you were to do this strictly in JavaScript, you would have to use the math.floor, math.random, multiply it by some range, and then add an offset to it. All right. If you're coming from Python and you're familiar with the game abstract in the Python environment, again, Python has a really cool random function that simply says ranInt. So we created a function here to mimic that. Now this is also another display of, when you might want to create a function, to abstract some code just to make your life easier. Right? And this really speaks to this whole abstract, this whole library, the game library, because that's what this is. This is an abstraction of a lot of JavaScript code to enable you to focus on the video game part and not necessarily all the details that have to go into, for instance, drawing the text on the screen. But let's get back to our code and let's move this thing. So we're going to say random, and we'll say 100, 860. The reason I'm saying 860 because our canvas is 960, and I'm saying 100 so it's not up on the edge. So we're giving ourselves a 100 buffer on both the left and right side. As for the Y, we're going to do something similar. We'll do 100 and 500 because our height is 600. Again, giving us that buffer, top, bottom, left, right. Okay, let's see what this looks like. All right, so a lot better. It's at 90 now. It's going to collide. It jumped down to 35, but hopefully you saw why. It bounced randomly, and because it's bouncing randomly, it might bounce back on top of the zombie. Again, turkeys aren't the smartest things around. So let's go back to our presentation. Let's review what we have. So we had a chance to explore sprites and some of their variables that we can use. So a sprite has a health amongst other variables that we will be tapping into the future. And we saw we can use the ranInt function that comes with the game library to reposition a sprite to a random location. Enjoy.